Hello everybody, Demon Redness here, and I'm having a bit of an odd day really. Um, I've been awake very early the last couple of days, and today for some reason I woke up at a reasonably early time, but with plenty of ideas and energy. So today I'm actually going to be trying to do a little bit of a GT Sport marathon. Now I've got a number of things. By that, what I mean is I've got a number of things that I want to do on GT. So I thought, you know what? Let's just see if I can get as many things done today as possible. Now, what I'm probably going to do is end the stream after every section that I do, because it is going to be very different things that I'm doing. I don't want to necessarily say what I'm going to do throughout the day right now, because it all depends on how I feel while I'm doing it really. Anyway, this part is I'm going to do a video which is mainly for my niece Anna. For anyone that has been watching my live streams recently, you'll know that last Thursday I secretly live streamed her driving the Red Bull Junior around Monza, and I'm sort of trying to help teach her how to improve on driving, or how to race basically. And manual gears is something that we've been working on. But it occurred to me this morning that she hasn't got a reference. So it doesn't matter how much I tell her while she's driving, she hasn't got a reference to what she's trying to accomplish. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. I'm actually going to go and take the Red Bull Junior on the settings that I've got for her, around the same track, Monza. I mean, the only difference on the settings will be I have a heavier wheel. So I'm going to do this video now so that I can show it to her later, and she'll have it to basically watch as many times as she likes. We'll get to see my livery for the next DGT League, by the way. So yeah, so hopefully she'll be able to look at what I do and then go, right, okay, that's what I need to accomplish. And then the things that I say to her will make so much more sense. Now, this car's sounding a little bit loud. I've just realised I'm not in a chat party. So if you struggle to hear me, I apologise. Right, okay, so I've got Anna's settings here. Basically, it's the same settings that I use, although I may increase the rear wing for her. It's the same settings I use, except for the power has been taken down a little bit. Although I'm sure I had it on lower than that. I'm sure I had it on 100, but I might sneak up to this level of power anyway. I'll see how this goes, but this is all about sort of showing Anna where to position the car and what I mean about taking speed through certain corners. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to go and do a couple of hot laps, and then I'll go through the lap like I do for the DGT drivers, explaining about each corner. So that way there's a hot lap straight away, so that Anna can see what's happening, and I'll try and talk while I'm doing that. And then I will do a slightly more descriptive version of events. So I am probably going to talk more towards Anna directly here, but we'll see how this goes anyway. Now, for Anna, I can't even hear myself. You know, hang on a second, hang on. I'm going to have to put myself in a chat party, hang on. Right, sorry about that. Just if I can't hear myself, then it's really odd to talk. I forgot what I was saying. Okay, yeah, so, right, Anna, things that I'm going to want you to look at when you look over this lap is the brake pedal, you know which one that is, the white bar that's shown at the moment. The red bit, that's the anti-lock braking system trying to kick in to stop the wheels from skidding. I want you to, if you can, look at how I apply the brake and then let the brake off. But also the steering wheel, the attempt of pressing the accelerator once, steering once, and braking once, or other way around actually. Braking once, steering once, accelerating once. That's the aim. Minor adjustments might be needed. So keep an eye on the steering angle, also the speed, but also the brakes. So let's go and see how we get on. That's a bit better, I can hear myself. Okay, so absolutely flat out up towards turn 1, and we go down 4 gears, and we're going to brake hard for this one at around about the 100-metre marker board, I think it is. Oh, I actually went too slow there. So you'll notice when watching this, around some of the corners I'm using full brakes and some of the corners I'm not. Now in this car it's all about what the car is capable of. So really there's only probably 2 corners on the whole track where you have to go fully on the brakes. The rest of the corners I'm not actually using full brakes. So turn 1 is one of the places where you use full brake. And then we'll try and not use the throttle too much between turn 1 and 2. Because if we do, we go off. I braked a little bit too late then, really. But if I'd have touched the throttle going between turn 1 and 2, I wouldn't have got around turn 2. Here is the second heavier braking point. And by heavier I mean going full brakes. And then from here on it's just gentle braking. You have a look at the brake indicator, you'll see how much I don't use the brake. And again up here, it's not full braking, the car can handle a quick corner. So gently braking at the bridge, get it down into 3rd gear, and then we're absolutely flooring it on the throttle and just trying to control it through the corners. And once I went on the throttle there, I didn't have to come off again. And then the last corner, again, don't have to go full brakes here. Okay, so I'm going to try braking just before the 100 metre marker board this time. So we've got 200, 150 brake. Now I did use a little bit of throttle between turn 1 and 2 there, and because I did, I couldn't accelerate as early as I should have been able to around turn 2. Brake too soon for that one, David. Now I just took that corner in a slightly different way. I'm not going to say how. I'm just going to see if Anna can work out what the difference was. I'll go for another lap, and what I'll try and mention here is what I'm doing with the accelerator, brake and steering. The steering is gradual turns. Some are quicker than others, but it's all gradual. And that is for the steering on and the steering off. Around here I'm just holding the steering slightly, so I'm holding a curve rather than going in and out, in and out, in and out. Clumped the curve a bit too hard there, David. So yeah, the steering wheel action is very good to watch, because gradual in and then we try and gradual out. Drive it like you stole it. Good example there of just how much time I lost. Okay, so there's a benchmark lap time there for Anna now then, a 1:47.8. Whether she'll get close to that or not, I don't know. Hopefully in time you will. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of the guide. Excuse me, that I would normally do for the DGT drivers, to try and break down exactly what it is that I'm doing in a little more detail. Okay, so Monza, turn 1, on approach, I always try and look out for this 200 metre marker board. That's the marker board on the left hand side that initiates everything I do into turn 1. And the reason for that is the first brake marker board, this 200 metres, is what I then know, okay, the third marker board along is my braking point. So if I drive past the 200 and think the third brake marker point, I'm braking too late. I'll be at 50 metres, not 100. So I always keep an eye out for that 200 metre marker board, because that is what then, in my mind, allows me to go, okay, that's one marker board, this is marker board 2, and now we're at marker board 3, and we can hit the brakes hard. Now the idea here is to try and brake in as straight a line as possible, and on the laps that I just did, you will have noticed that I was fully on the brakes for quite a long time, and that is because the 100 metre marker board is around about the limit to be able to get the car slowed down. If you brake beyond the marker board, you're probably not going to get to the apex curb of turn 1. Okay, so as we are braking, we do the brake weight shift, which is we hit the brakes first, then we wait a moment, then we do the downshifts. Bringing in that weighting allows you to go down the gears so much faster than if you just hit the brakes and bang the gears down. It unbalances the car, you'll miss the corners. So once we're applying the brakes, we're getting the gears coming down, we want to turn in kind of as late as we can, and if we look at the tyre markings on the road, we can see, so between my right hand and the apex curb there's a very dark patch on the tarmac, and then sort of going from the apex curb towards the left hand side of the track we can see a curvature of what is called the racing line. So that's ideally what we want to try and follow. So we want to be turning in just as the right hand curb is about getting to the mirror, and if need be still be on the brakes a little bit into turn 1. That would be for most cars actually around this particular track, although some cars do not like braking and turning. So now we've got ourselves into this position, we want to be able to use the curb here. If you can get your right hand wheels on this curb in this position, it makes the next corner so much easier. We can see it right in front of us, and given the steering angle it is going to allow us to exit turn 1 in this position, which now means we have a 100% view of turn 2 and we can make sure that we get turned into it. If you brake too late or you miss the apex curb, you'll find yourself in this kind of position, which you may think actually that's not too bad, we can still see the corner, but the apex curb is just to the right of us here, and we now need to move over to the right a little bit, and now we don't have a 100% view of turn 2. We can hardly see most of the sausage curb, which means that as we approach turn 2 we now have a much tighter turn, which means we have to go slower to be able to make the corner, and this is the view we have on the exit of the corner while we're on the apex curb. So this is wrong. However, if you get it right, trying to drive in reverse is not easy to do, but there we go. Okay, so if you have got onto the apex curb in the right sort of position and we exit turn 1 here, and now we can turn in much sooner and get on the apex curb here, now we're at the end of the apex curb and we are facing a much better angle on the track, which means we can now go full power so much earlier rather than having to slow down around the corner. We'll let the car run out over to the right hand side, preferably in around about this position, using the curb if need be. And then we're going to be cold tyres, then we're going to be absolutely flat out around the Curva Grande. There's a couple of different ways that people like to take this particular corner. Some will be a late turn in, and by late turn in I mean rather than aiming for the corner like this, you'd keep driving on the left hand side and then turn in much later. There are a number of different ways to enter it and exit it. Personally, it depends on the car for me, but in this car has bags and bags and bags and bags and bags of grip, so we can approach the corner absolutely flat out, but not quite all the way over to the left hand side of the road. We can be middle of the road, and then as we're approaching the corner where this black patch of rubber is on the road in front of us, we can start initiating a slight turn, and the aim here is to just slowly work our way towards the apex curb under the trees but not get on the curb, and then as we get to about the service road we can let the steering off a little bit, which allows us to go quicker, allows us to run over towards the left hand side of the track, and then we can straight line towards the right hand side. This is a very tricky braking zone on this particular game, mainly because they've got rid of the bridge, which used to be about where the 150 metre marker board is. That bridge was a brilliant indicator of where to brake down here. Unfortunately, it's not there, so Anna, who's not driven this track, it will make not that much difference to her. But to be honest, Anna's braking for this corner has actually been very, very good. On approach to the corner, I was noticing that 100 metres was perhaps a little too early to brake in this car. So this one is going to have to be a little bit more on feel, Anna. But if we keep an eye out for the actual brake marker boards and treat this like turn one. Sorry, the car is not liking these low revs on cold tyres. Yeah, if we treat the brake marker boards, and if you don't know what they are the boards with the numbers on, and it means 150 metres, 100 metres, and 50 metres. If we go on the same process of turn one, where we go, okay, number 150 is brake marker board 1, right? If I brake at brake marker board 2, is that too soon or is it too late? If it's too soon, then you know on the next lap you go brake marker board 1, brake marker board 2, then brake, and then see if that's too soon or too late. That's the process to use when you're learning the track. Pick a point to brake at. If it's too soon, pick another point beyond it. If it's too late, pick another point before it, or stick with a point, just know you have to brake slightly before it. Now, for someone like Anna who is very new to this kind of thing, you, Anna, will probably focus visually a lot on these things, and you might make mistakes, and you don't have to worry about that. The more experienced you get, the more automatic those things are. So you would end up driving down here, and the same at turn one, driving down here, not taking any notice whatsoever of the brake marker boards, but your mind automatically goes brake marker board 1, brake marker board 2, brake. It'll happen automatically, and hopefully that's what I'm going to be able to, what I'm teaching you is going to be able to benefit you on that. Okay. Turn 4, this is one of the nasty chickens. The turn-in point is the point where you would initially start steering. Now, in many cars at this track, it would be around about the start of this curb on the right. But in this car, we'd probably go beyond it to around about where the shadow of the tree is, and then start turning in. One of the reasons for that is this car does not like sausage curbs, so if we turn in too soon, we'll hit the sausage curb and we'll lose control of the car. By turning in later, we can make sure that we get our front left tyre onto the apex curb here in this position, and once again it allows us to be looking directly at the next corner, which means that if we can position our car here, we can then start accelerating now all the way around this corner, and again touch your right front wheel on the curb, and then we're absolutely flat out. So once we've got turned in for the left hand part and we've touched that front left tyre on the curb, we can be on the accelerator all the way up to here. Okay, two of my favourite corners on this particular track, because they are corners that many people mess up, and there is a beautiful technique to taking these corners, and I did show it, and it is about how much you don't brake. A lot of people, Anna, will drive way too fast at this corner and brake way too late, but a brilliant driving technique is to brake earlier and gentler. So rather than, for example, here driving beyond this 50-metre marker board and banging the brakes on full to slow down for the corner, if we actually start braking at the 50-metre marker board, we only need a tiny little bit of brake applied to get the right speed for the corner, because the distance we are from the corner is enough to get the speed down. What that allows you to do then, so if you brake at about the 50-metre marker board, and it is only gently, it allows you to brake gently, get down into third gear, and then once you're in this position, all you have to focus on is turning and steering. You've already done your braking, you can now be off the brakes, you've done your gear changes, so it's all about steering and accelerating. Now this corner, to begin with, don't accelerate too soon heading into this corner, but once you kind of get under the trees here, you should be able in this car to go absolutely flat out and then just drive beautifully out of the corner. This corner and the next one, they both have what is called a positive camber, which means the road is tilted towards the right in that right hand corner, and it allows the car to just balance around the corner and dance around the corner much faster. So now that you've taken that very, very quick, we do exactly the same thing for the next corner. So I think it's about the 50-meter marker board. We gently apply the brakes. We do one downshift in this car down to third gear. So at the 50-meter marker board, it's a gentle touch of the brakes down into third gear, so that by the time we're in this position, all we have to focus on is steering and accelerating. And the aim here is to get the right hand front tyre touching that green bit of AstroTurf just here. So this corner, we can use a lot of this curb and we can use it to our advantage. It will allow us to take this corner much faster, and again, once you've turned in and you've got to this position, you should easily be able to go full throttle. And now we are absolutely flat out up to what is called the Ascari chicanes. I'm just going to slow down here. For anybody that watches this, simplest rule of thumb for Monza is the bridge that goes over the road is a very good braking reference point. Depending on the car you're in, depends on whether you can brake after it or have to brake before it. But if you start off with using the bridge, it gives you then, am I braking too early or am I braking too late? In this particular car, Anna, we can actually go beyond this bridge. So what you can do as you approach this corner is think of the bridge. So as we approach, we know, okay, here comes the bridge. We can go beyond the bridge, and then the first brake marker board after the bridge, which is the 100, is where we will brake. And unlike a lot of the other corners, you don't have to brake a lot. It does only need to be a gentle braking in this particular car. We get the car to go down 3 gears initially. So we take this corner in third gear, and while we're braking, we keep it in a straight line, and we're going to wait until we go just beyond the 50-meter marker board before we start turning in. So literally we're probably 10 meters past the 50-meter marker board when we start turning in. And the aim here is to get the front left tyre as close as we can to the yellow and black curbs without actually touching them. So we want to position our car here, which allows us to see the next corner. Now these 3 corners are beautiful corners to drive, because when you get the entry right for this left-hander and you find yourself in this position, you should be able to be absolutely flat out through the next 2 corners. Now what I will say to you, Anna, is as you're driving this, you might find yourself on the next 2 corners with your car in a position that makes you think you should actually lift off the throttle or lift off your steering. What I'll say is, initially, just keep this absolutely flat out. Once you've got to this position, we want you to be going absolutely flat out. For this next right-hander, the aim is to get as close to this curb on the right as we can without getting on it too much, because if we do hit any of the black and yellow parts of the curb, that is going to unsettle the car. It's going to make the car bounce around, and it may make the car want to spin. And that's the situation that I'm saying for Anna. I'd like you to keep going flat out and see if you can control it with the steering, doing things like we taught you when doing the rallying. So if you find yourself in this position, touching the curb, and the car's wanting to go over to the right, I want you to stay absolutely flat out, but control where the car's going with the steering. Okay? So once we get around this right-hander, hugging the curb on the right-hand side, it should allow us to just clip this next curb with our front left tyre, preferably where the tyre mark you can see goes between the black and yellow curb and the red and white curb. So we want to get just over the curb like this, and then we can again stay absolutely flat out, and then we're going to let the car run over to the right hand side, which allows us to use maximum speed because the car is in a straighter line. Okay, now we're into the final corner, and depending on who pronounces this corner, if it's Jeremy Clarkson, he pronounces it in a rude way, but it is known as the Parabolica. So as we're approaching this corner, we'll be absolutely flat out as fast as we can, and this is a corner that, again, depending on the car, depends on how late you can brake. This car, you can actually brake at around about the 50-metre marker board. So as we approach the corner, we keep an eye out for the first brake marker board, and that allows us then to know in our mind, right, go past the first one, go past the second one, at the third one we brake. And for this corner, we don't have to brake a lot. It's only a very gentle applying of the brakes. So we're going to keep going in a nice straight line, and then when we get to the 50-metre marker board, we're going to gently apply the brakes, and for this corner we're going to take it in 4th gear, so we'll go down 2 gears. And the aim for this corner, if we actually look, let me back up a bit, if we actually look at the track map in the top right corner, I just want to get the red arrow out of the way. Okay, if we look at the track map in the top right corner, you can see that this corner that we're approaching is not a perfect curve all of the way around. The first part of the corner is tighter than the later part of the corner. So the bit we're looking at now is a tighter turn than the exit of the corner. Now the reason that I want to mention that is because that doesn't mean that you have to go slower around this corner, but what it means is the apex point is very early on this particular corner. So the point you turn in is very important. Or even if you get the turn in point wrong, where you apex is still very important. Now, Anna, if you've forgotten what apexes and apex curves and stuff like that are, don't forget you've got your reference notes. Okay, so as we've gently applied the brake, we are slowly going to be working our way towards the right hand side of the track, but not a lot, keeping a kind of in line with the tyre marks that are on the road. Once we've got the car down to about 4th gear, we want to be getting over to the curb just after this big box on the right hand side of me. I would say that it is. It's a spectator's box, that one, or a photographer's box. So just after that box is where we want to be positioning our car next to the curb. So between the box and between the lights. Now I'll be honest, in all the time I've driven around this track on this game, I've never seen the box or the lights. I don't look at them. I only focus on the curb, but while you're trying to learn something new, having those reference points can be very, very useful. So look for them, because once you've initially seen them, your peripheral vision will automatically pick them up. Okay, so once we've hugged to the apex quite nicely, once we get to the light post, we're going to let the car start running towards the left hand side of the track. Now we're not actually going to turn left to get over there, but what we're going to do is, as we approach this final corner, we're going to do our initial turn in up to the apex point. Once we've reached the apex point, we're then going to ease the steering off and off and off and off all the way around this corner, slowly easing off the steering until we're straight on the main straight. So we'll let the car run out towards the left, and there's a curb coming up on the left hand side, and the aim is to just get your left hand tyres to clip this curb coming up over here. So from the apex point to this point is how long you have to slowly work off your steering, and by doing it between those 2 points allows you to go much faster between those 2 points. Okay, there's the lap of Monza. So hopefully all of that I've just mentioned will make sense to Anna, or even to anybody else that may be watching this. Now, for anyone else that is watching this, everything that I have just said there is relevant to any car that you drive around the Monza circuit. The only difference being, for some of the corners, i.e. turn 1, the final corner, turn 1, turn 4 and the final corner, you may have to brake much earlier if the car doesn't have a lot of downforce. The other difference is the amount you may have to brake in the 2 right hand corners we're looking at now. So where I was doing very gentle braking, if you're in a car that hasn't got as much downforce, you are going to have to do slightly heavier gentle braking, but still not full brakes. Okay, I'm going to do one more run, couple of laps there, just to try and show again. And now that I've mentioned all of that, I'll show again me driving round so you can see what it was that I was saying. Excuse me. Oh, straddled the curb on that occasion. A little bit squirrely on the way in then, but still made the corner. And there we go. Okay, not as quick a lap as I did earlier, but good enough. And with those, with the way that I've mentioned to drive around this track, it is a very good way of being able to go around the track very quickly. But if you make mistakes, you have an opportunity to still go quite quickly. Yes, you may lose a little bit of time, but you're not going to end up off the track. Okay, I'm going to bring this live stream to an end now, but that's not the end of what I'm going to be doing today. The next thing that I'm going to do, I'll be starting up another live stream in a few minutes time, and what I'm going to do on that one is, I know a couple of the DGT League drivers have asked for some kind of how to go about setting up the cars, and sort of explaining what things do, or showing what things do. So I'm going to try and do that. I've got a kind of idea of how I'm going to do it. I'm basically, at the moment, I'm going to pick a car kind of at random, unless somebody recommends a particular car they want me to have a look at. Now, one of the things I am actually thinking of doing, well, I say pick a car at random, I'm thinking some kind of race car which isn't too bad to drive, but isn't quite right. That's what I'm thinking in my mind as something to have a look at. The road cars on this, to be honest, I don't tend to play about with the setups on the road cars because I prefer not to drive them. But there are some cars that I do, like the Ferrari F40. But even then, the best thing you can do with that car is leave it bog standard. As soon as you apply any tuning to it, like increasing the power, it's a horrible beast. Fun, but horrible beast. Okay, so I'm going to go and pick a car. I will message a few of the, I will put a message in the DGT League chat, see if anyone's got a particular car that they would want me to have a look at. And hopefully I'll be able to show something to do with how to go about setting up the cars. Anyway, we'll bring this one to an end, so hopefully, Anna, this will be of use to you. See you all in a minute.